Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a literal shadow war that's being fought right now over the American dream of homeownership. We're going to look closely at a phenomenon that is fundamentally shifting how housing works, moving away from human buyers and straight into the realm of code, algorithms, and massive institutional capital. Let's get right into it.
Okay, so picture this classic scenario, the idyllic American dream, right? A quiet street, a nice yard, and a home you can actually afford. Imagine you've been saving up diligently for, let's say, 5 years. You finally find that perfect starter home and you submit a really competitive offer. You're feeling good. But then, only hours later, you get a call from your realtor saying you've been outbid. It's totally devastating. But what's actually happening behind the scenes here? Well, that's what makes this so fascinating. Get this, the winning bid is often 30% over the asking price in pure cash. 30%! And here is the absolute wildest catch. You weren't outbid by a human family. No. You were outbid by a trillion-dollar corporate algorithm that never even stepped foot inside the house. Think about that. No human ever looked at the floorboards. Nobody checked out the neighborhood. It was just pure math.
Part 1. The Shadow Housing War and Wall Street's New Asset Class.
So after the 2008 financial crash, Wall Street basically discovered an incredible opportunity. For almost a century, the middle class built their equity through homes, right? But institutional investors realized that owning the asset class of survival, literally the roof over people's heads, is perhaps the most profitable asset of all. Way better than trading paper on a floor. And to be clear, we aren't talking about your local mom-and-pop landlord who owns a duplex down the street. We are looking at massive institutional juggernauts. We're talking private equity funds, sovereign wealth funds, hedge funds, and mega corporate landlords. These entities are backed by billions in capital, and they are quietly turning homeownership into a luxury subscription service. It's a structural shift that genuinely has the potential to lock an entire generation into a renter class.
Which brings us to part 2, institutional aggregation and the weaponization of buying. Now, you might be wondering, how exactly does a multi-billion-dollar fund actually buy a random suburban house without using traditional realtors? Well, think of institutional aggregation as a weaponized digital vacuum cleaner. Wall Street literally writes custom software scripts to scan local real estate databases every single millisecond. The exact moment a starter home hits the market, usually anything under $350,000, the system instantly analyzes it against local job growth and school metrics. If the math works out, it auto-generates a massive all-cash offer, waives all the inspections, and closes in days. It simply snatches up the inventory before humans can even react. This whole situation just perfectly illustrates the sheer unfairness of the playing field. It's honestly exactly like trying to buy a highly sought-after concert ticket. You know the feeling. You're sitting there, exhausted, constantly refreshing your browser, saving up for years, essentially bringing a knife to a high-frequency algorithmic gunfight. On the other side, you've got a corporate algorithm functioning like a fleet of high-speed scalping bots, buying up 10,000 tickets in 3 seconds. You aren't losing because you didn't save enough. You're losing to sheer processing speed.
And the real-world impact of this? It's pretty striking. If you tune into local city council meetings across the country, you'll see residents discovering that entire subdivisions are essentially locked behind a corporate paywall. In one crazy instance, citizens found out that 34 out of 40 homes built on their exact block were bought by the exact same out-of-state LLC, all within a 90-day window. As one incredibly frustrated resident put it, "We don't have neighbors anymore. We have a corporate board of directors." Moving on to part 3, the software cartel and the automation of collusion. So, why does a billionaire fund manager even want a typical suburban starter home? Well, it really comes down to a massive structural shift in the global economy. In a low-interest rate world where traditional government bonds yield basically nothing, a house is essentially a high-yielding corporate bond that you can live inside. It gives them capital appreciation plus predictable cash flow. But the psychology here gets super fascinating and legally complex when a massive corporation buys up 30% of an entire zip code, because at that point, they don't just become a landlord, they become the market itself. They gain this immense pricing power. In fact, the Department of Justice has actually launched antitrust lawsuits investigating what are called yield management algorithmic cartels. These are centralized proprietary black box software systems that literally pull private competitor data to command simultaneous market-wide rent increases. The mechanics of this are just highly coordinated. Competitors feed their private internal leasing data right into one central algorithm. The software pools it all together, analyzes the local supply, and then commands simultaneous rent hikes for everyone.
It even tells landlords to intentionally keep certain units vacant just to artificially inflate yields across the whole portfolio. Think about it. If human executives coordinated a 15% rent hike in a smoky back room, it would be a federal crime. But the DOJ alleges that passing it through an algorithm somehow sanitizes it under the guise of market efficiency.
And here's part 4, the wealth extraction loop and the ultimate plot twist.
Okay, the absolute kicker from the source materials findings is uncovering exactly where these mega corporations are getting the billions of dollars to fund this massive buying spree in the first place. Trace the flow of the money with me for a second. It starts with your paycheck. That money goes into your pension or your retirement fund, which is managed by large institutions. Those institutions hand that capital right over to Wall Street private equity. Wall Street then takes your retirement capital, uses it to algorithmically outbid you on a starter home, and then, here's the twist, turns around and rents that exact home back to you or your children for a premium. This leads to an incredibly stark realization presented by the researchers. You are funding your own economic displacement. Seriously. This isn't just some unfortunate real estate trend or a weird byproduct of high inflation. The sources argue that it's a self-reinforcing loop systematically rewriting our social contract. Capital flows from the middle class, straight into the machine, buys up the neighborhood, and then extracts rent. It's a dynamic perfectly designed to ensure people own nothing, subscribe to everything, and pay interest to a board of directors indefinitely. When homes are treated purely as lines on a corporate balance sheet, real estate ceases to be a neighborhood. It just becomes an extractive infrastructure. True wealth, as we all know, isn't just about accumulating currency in a bank account. It's about autonomy. It's the baseline security of knowing your roof can't be turned off, or your rent arbitrarily spiked by an executive committee sitting on a Zoom call 3 states away.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a provocative thought. This whole system completely relies on people staying quiet, blindly signing the lease, and setting up autopay. But the first step to escaping a system is realizing you're actually inside it. Now that you understand the hidden data mechanics and the corporate psychology at play here, will you take a look at your local county land registries?